So let me sum it up what we covered yesterday. We went through the definition of political theory, what are the various components of it, and how political theory has evolved over a period of time from ancient times, from it is said from Plato to Hegel. Okay, and then the modern science-centric thoughts that we will see today in detail, and then the contemporary times, how it has happened. Right? If you can recall all these things. Now, from there onwards, for today's class, now I told you that this was also asked in your exam, the decline of political theory in 2018. Yesterday, we saw what was asked in 2019, the resurgence of political theory. So, before resurgence, there was a decline. And why did decline come? Why did decline actually come? The you read this along with me. The view that all human actions, including public policy, can be evaluated in the light of ethical consideration was not accepted by scientific minded early modernists. Now try to understand this. Human action, including public policy is framed by us, by human beings. Okay, and if you all human actions, including public policy, can be evaluated in the light of ethical consideration. This is what the ancient thinkers were emphasizing on. Remember, the state had a role to play. When we'll start with Western political thinkers, even for that matter, Indian political thinkers, Indian political thinker starts with Dharma Shastra. There you will read about Manu Smriti and Vedas and Bhagavad Gita and so on and so forth. Here in Western political thought, you will start with Plato. But to understand Plato, we have to also see something about Socrates, his guru that I told you yesterday, day before yesterday, the lineage. So everywhere, ethics was very, very important. Now, these scientific minded early modernists, whom are we referring to? Mostly post Hegel era, mostly during the Renaissance, which came, medieval times, when they started emerging. There was a transformation going on in entire Europe. I have told this to you. Renaissance happened, and then this Enlightenment era came. So both these eras, both these things ushered upon many different stuffs on political theory itself. So what happens was that scientific emphasis was increased. Scientific emphasis was increased even on political theory. Rational evolution of moral world seems impossible. See, you understand what is morality? If I ask you to define morality, how would you define morality in a line? Anyone, please give it an attempt. What is morality to you? You must be aware of what is morality, right? You have to study this in your paper for ethics. Something that is ethical and caters to the need of majority. Not at all. Sumana, your second part on majority is big question mark is here. Morality is individual values. What is good or bad? Okay. Okay. What is good or bad? What is right or wrong? Okay. Ethical value. So most of you are taking morality to be a synonym for ethics. Okay. You most of you are seeing it from this point of view. What's good or bad according to larger society? According to larger society, there is a term for it. J.S. Mill has talked about. Acha, all of you went through those terms which I put in the group. Did you even read what is utilitarianism? Tell me then, what is utilitarianism? You have read it, you all told me. Very good, Anirudh. Maximum good for maximum people. And what is the antonym for it? What would be the opposite? Totalitarian. Very good. Very good. Yes. Harsha, very good. Aditya also good. Vishnu, no, not majoritarianism. It would be totalitarianism. Totalitarianism is again something called dictatorship, autocracy. These we shall discuss these things also. So coming back to our this discussion that morality. What is morality? You see, morality varies from society to society. I'll give you an example. All of us sitting in a classroom. I'm sporting a T-shirt. Maybe all of you are also, but maybe your camera is off. Maybe you are sitting in a banyan. I cannot because I'm on camera. So moral would be that if we are in a class, we should be properly dressed, morally speaking, right? In your home, you can roam around in your shorts and banyans and whatever you want to, in your dhoti or lungi, whatever you want to. Somewhere, same date, same planet, even this cloth would be an offensive cloth, right? Do you understand this? somewhere on same planet on same day, if you have not covered your head, that would you will be eligible for 50 lashes on your back, right? So do you see that morality is varying from place to place? Do you understand this point, all of you? So morality again varies from society to society. Society again is composed of individuals, correct? So what may be moral to me or what may be moral to all of us in India might not be moral to someone in Saudi Arabia or Iran. If you do not cover your head, you will be eligible for lash. If you are a girl, if you walk around with your body is not properly covered, you will be punished by the Sharia law, right? That is their morality. This is our morality. So how can there be a rational evaluation of moral world? Okay, because rationality everywhere would be same, logic everywhere would be same, but morality differs from place to place. And if moral opinions come into conflict, reason cannot arbitrate between them. What is arbitration? You understand? Arbitrate means it cannot mediate and try to find a way out. Now, a person who has been living into Saudi would say that who has always born there, he has lived there, he's a 50-year-old guy. So, can you change his mind that no, your morality is actually immorality? This is very immoral to beat people if their uh, uh, body parts are not properly covered. It's come on, I have a choice. Of course, there is something called public decency, but then how do you exactly define that public decency? So you cannot change that. That is why when morality comes into conflict with each other, two moral aspects are coming at confrontation. How will reason arbitrate or try to find a midway between them? That is why. And I told you all these early moderates were having scientific mind. So reason comes naturally to them. Are you understanding it? Why there was a decline of political theory post Renaissance? Because thinkers, all of them have that scientific bent of mind. See, every thinker, please remember my words, every thinker is a prisoner of his or her times. Okay, no one is, there is nothing called eternal thinker. Whatever they see, experience in and around themselves, they tend to theorize it. Okay, be it Socrates, Plato, Descartes, Leibniz, Husserl, Wittgenstein, Bertrand Russell, Karl Marx, Hegel, all of them have done the same thing. We are trying to study their thoughts. Okay, that is why when we see things in retrospective, we can find faults, and that is what we are finding here. That if morality cannot be judged on the basis of rationality, okay, morality, because how will you say whether Saudi morality is more moral than the Indian morality, or in USA? You can in USA you can just walk around in your undergarments. No one will care, right? In India, people would. Sensibilities would be hurt, right? Public decency, morality. In USA, it does not matter. In Europe, it does not matter. There are nude beaches in some countries like Australia, right? You don't have a nude beach in India. Probably one in Goa, but then Indians are not allowed there. Do you know this? So the thing is, the thing is that morality is highly subjective and reason cannot do anything about it. It cannot find a midway. This was the dilemma between in front of all the political thinkers which came around during that era, and that is why they dismissed it. That is why this question was asked in 2018. That is why it was said, it was prophesied that there is a decline, there is a death of political theory because it's mostly deals with morality, and we are logical people, we are having scientific bent of mind, we are trying to redefine public political theory, and so political theory would be rendered dead form. Now you see, and after the rise of empirical sciences, again this word empirical. Tell me the meaning. I told this to you yesterday also. Someone asked me day before yesterday. I told this. What was empirical? Experience based, right? Experience based. Temperature is cool in Delhi. Okay, it rained a few hours before, so it is cool. How do I know this? Because I felt it. Experience, empirical evidence, right? If I ask you how is the weather of your city, Hyderabad, it must be hot there, right? And how can you say that it's hot because you have also felt it? Empirical evidence. So empirical evidence suggests weather updates have come. Rainy. Oh my God. So it's raining here also and there also. Monsoons have hit. So I think monsoons have come. Anyways, Bhushan ji will take care of monsoons. I will not. So empirical sciences, political theory was rendered dead because what we will experience, what we will feel, only that we will tell. So values are impervious, if values are impervious to reason, then all we can have is a subjective opinion of the human world. Right? Do you understand this line? Values are impervious to reason, which means values cannot be comprehended by reason. Then what can we do? All we can do is have a subjective opinion of human world. Of course, it shall be subjective. Why it shall be subjective? Because my interpretation will vary from your interpretation. So human world will be very confusing because everyone will have a subjective opinion. Values cannot be defined holistically. Values are varying. I just give you an example. Values, ethics, morality vary from people to people, person to person. Right? Like it said that India is a patriarchal society, but some tribes in Northeast are not patriarchal. They are matrilineal society. Bengal, to a large extent, is said to be matriarchal society. Okay, so again, within the same country, you see different states behaving differently. So much of subjective opinion being generated. So if we try to theorize these things, see, this is what this does. Uh, this is actually what the object of social sciences is. Okay, so what is the purpose of social science? To study human behavior, whether it is psychology, sociology, political science, even to some extent economics, anthropology. Anthropology is what? So sociology plus biology, right? So what they do, public administration, all these things tend to study human behavior. But then they are saying that human behavior is so subjective, these very strong, you cannot formulate a theory, especially a political theory. So this means impossibility of social sciences. In the orientation session itself, I told you that there is so much of subjectivity in social science. Okay, what would be right from a leftist point of view will definitely not be right from a rightist point of view, or from a centrist point of view. A liberal would think differently from a conservative, right? So impossibility of social sciences. That's why they said political theory is gone. Eastern attributes decline of political theory to hyperfactualism, the obsession with facts. There are people who always talk in facts. Okay, give me the data, and I shall tell you whether what you are saying is correct or incorrect. Give me the data, and I shall tell you what you are saying is correct or incorrect. So this is how they said this, that if there are no facts, we cannot put it in theory. That is why impossibility of social science, political theory is dead now. Now comes, and we have seen before we go into behavioralism, I would like to tell you that yesterday itself we saw, day before yesterday, that how social this political theory re-emerged. How it died today, I show you, because medieval times, the when medieval era was ending, scientific experiments started happening everywhere in Europe. Okay, it was actually 200 years. It is what is called the Nisa. James Watt discovered steam engine, and then it enabled many inventions and discoveries. Okay, many enables. So you see, in these 200 periods, every walk of life, the painters, the political thinkers, you know, you see likes of kings coming, which thinkers and writers who are asking people to question the existing order, to question the status quo. So because of this, a narrative was built that only facts and science can lead us to reality. Theories and values and morality cannot. So one of the implication, one of the consequence of such a at such an atmosphere in those times was that thing that there is an impossibility of social science, political theory was rendered dead. Okay. Any questions here? Anyone? Of course, there can be this question. I was about to tell this, Subhana, because once they have asked political theory is dead, next time they have asked that political theory has been revived. So they can, of course, ask that political theory can never die. So you can quote from last class and today's class that there was a debate going on that political theory is dead because of these many things, the emphasis of science, facts, and empirical science, you write. Okay, you can write the name of the scholars, Eastern, and yesterday also we saw the name of some scholars. And then you said the debate was revived. It got a new lifeline when it was rendered not dead. It was live and functioning. How? That we saw in the next class. So conclusion you can say that based on what has happened in the last 400 to 500 years, we can safely conclude that political theory has not died. Whenever a question has been raised on its relevance, it has reshaped or regenerated itself, right? It has reincarnated itself. Of course, why not? Political theory can never die. But let us wait for end of the ideology debate before we even attempt this question. Basically, people thought political science species is of non-scientific nature. Yeah, based on morality, and since we believe in science, it is ended. Since we believe in science, we take validation from science. Science, empirical evidence can only come from science. What you can touch, see, feel, and taste can be scientifically proved, right? See, they were trying to appropriate scientific theories into social science. Okay, this is what Descartes also did. Uh, I'll tell you this story some other day. So, hyperfactualism, the obsession with facts. So, everywhere you are asking fact, everywhere you are asking fact. See, not every time we can do with facts. In fact, you say that I went to the road and there was no one on the road. It does not mean there is a curfew. So facts cannot be right. What you saw at that moment might change the next moment. So over obsession with fact is also wrong. Over obsession with anything is wrong. Okay, this is what was happening here. That first everything was associated with values. Next, everything is associated with science and data and empirical sciences. There has to be a judicious mix. Why there was a question on relevance of political theory? All of you can answer this now. Yes, I'll summarize it. That political theory was dead. Political theory is irrelevant. Social sciences have died. Why they have died? Because they only talk about values, which cannot be scientifically verified and which is very highly subjective in nature because it varies from one society to the other. It is the society that shapes morale, right? It is the society that shapes ethics. Sati was considered pious in same country. Today it's a criminal offense. Triple talaq was happening with impunity some 5 years back. Now it cannot happen. It's again a criminal offense. So society values keep on changing. Otherwise, it will be stagnant and it will decay. It has to reinvent itself. That is why they said that societies which are based on values, they cannot be judged on scientific parameters. There was an advent of science during medieval times, during the end of medieval times. So they tried to appropriate scientific methods into social science. And they said that this cannot be appropriated. It's a misfit, category mistake we are making. So social sciences and political theory are nothing. They are just empty talks. They are dead. Now, what emerged after that? And now we'll see what happened when political theory is dead. No, it's not dead. Why it's not dead? Because see what is next on your screen. Behavioralism. Behaviorism. Note down the name. Don't note down. You will be given these things. They are these scholars. This is how you approach your answer. Okay. You give the name of the scholars at the starting itself. Different names. So when the person who is checking your answer sheet will get an impression, oh, he knows about these people. Okay. So what it says, which is the result of increasing attention given to behavior of ordinary man. What was happening before that? Non-ordinary men, emperors, nobles, people who were into privileged position. It was supposed that their behavior is the behavior of everyone. Now, after this happened, they said, ordinary man has a different approach. So, behavioral approach says that let us study, let us give attention to how common folks behave. So, this approach believes that there are certain uniformities in political behavior. Again, they are trying to arrive at objective conclusions from subjective behaviors. See. It's actually true. Everyone loves peace, right? There are few people you can ask who will say that Mussolini used to say. You have heard the name Mussolini. He used to say, uh, nations should fight every 5 years to stay healthy. Now, who echoes this sentiment? Probably Hitler would. No, don't categorize it right now, Sumana. Don't call them elitist. They were dark ages. We'll come to these things. Okay. So, uh, most of human beings are peace loving. As peace loving human beings, when we are provided with a democracy and an election procedure, what we do, we tend to elect a government that is stable, would work for our welfare, right? So you see uniformities in political behavior. You ask an American, you ask an Indian, you ask a British, you ask a Russian, okay, different societies, different people, different values, but there will be some uniformity in their political behavior. All of them would say that we want our country to develop, we want our lifestyle to be better, we want to contribute to the growth of our nation, we love our country, right? Everyone would say the same thing, and we want such type of government which would facilitate all these things. Correct? Yes or no? So there are uniformities in political behavior, okay, which can be expressed in generalization or theories in order to explain and predict political phenomena. Okay, so what behaviorism is saying, that political theories are more or less similar. Okay, people tend to behave exactly the same way. Okay, under certain set of conditions, under certain set of conditionalities actually. What happened after Second World War? We can verify this. Churchill lost, Conservative Party lost, and the Labour Party under Clement Attlee came into power in Britain. Despite winning the Second World War, did you ever wonder, have you ever wondered why, despite winning the Second World War, where Winston Churchill put in a heroic effort? Please watch that movie Dunkirk. How many of you have seen that? I'm glad you people are not into this idiotic Bollywood. Please watch Dunkirk someday, not today itself after the class. It's a story of World War, and again, you can see Darkest Star also, especially Mr. Churchill. So Churchill led from the front the political. I'll tell you, Dunkirk, Dunkirk. So a heroic effort he put. Entire Great Britain acknowledged it, and he lost the elections. 45 Second World War ended. 46 Clement Attlee became the prime minister. Why? Because entire Europe was fed up of war, and they said we need something that will give us peace. War has ended. We have also been at the receiving end. Right. So everyone would endure for peace. So that's why they said that there is a political kind of this kind of exact behavioral pattern. Okay, expressed in generation or theories in order to explain and predict political phenomena. So what is behaviorism saying? Did you understand? This discusses about the behavior of individuals. Yes, how does it relate to state? Because the same behaviorists also say that individuals are state is individual writ large. It is said. So different set of individuals are behaving in same way. That is why there is a uniformity in state. Why did Churchill lost? Because most of the people in Britain outvoted him and voted for at least Conservative Party. Individual shying away from conservatives and going in the favor of Labour Party. Okay, not one individual, different individuals are studied, and then they see a pattern. How can there be a pattern on one person? Of course, of course, I'm not shying away from the fact. I did not endorse. I do not endorse this fact that science and social science are completely separate, but they are completely mixed. This is also not true. I told you a judicious mix, right? Different people are behaving in identical way that is being studied by behaviorists, and they see the same pattern cutting across societies and countries. India, South Africa, Nelson Mandela comes to power, Jawaharlal Nehru becomes the prime minister of India. Your question itself, behaviorism circumstantial. Don't we all behave according to our circumstances? Behavioralists do not want to accept everything as granted. Therefore, they emphasize testing and verifying everything. According to them, what cannot be verified is not scientific. This is what science says. If that's true, that there must be some verification for the same. LHS equals to RHS. So this has to be verified, and they do not take things for granted. Again, the impact of science you see in studying human behavior. They have put heavy emphasis on separation of facts from value. Now, again, they say that facts are different from values. This is what the original inhibition was. correct? Regarding the irrelevance of political theory, that how can facts examine values? So they are saying no, both of them are different. Okay, both of them are different. There can be a category mistake if we try to mix them. Right fact for right values. What they all say, political science should not be separated from various other social sciences like history, sociology, economics. I told you also in the orientation itself that it's a very interdisciplinary subject. This approach believes that political events are shaped by various other factors in the society, and therefore it would be wrong to separate political science from other disciplines. Okay, sociology will have an impact on political science. Economics will have, all these things will have an impact. Even history will have an impact. So what else behaviorists are saying? What were the first 2 points? That it is a result of how it emerges that when we study the behavior of ordinary people and then we observe certain uniformities. On the basis of that, we arrive at some theory. Nothing is to be taken for granted. Facts have to be verified. There has to be a verification. Facts are separate, values are separate. Do not mix them all the time. And political science has to be interdisciplinary. Other subjects, other social sciences will have an impact on it. Are these 3 points clear to all of you? So suppose there is a 10-mark question in your main exam. It has been asked, behavioral approach of political theory. Can you write that? On the basis of today's discussion that we had today, can you write the behavioral approach to political theory? ये आपके मेंस में आया है. This has come in your main exam. See, my attempt is strictly exam oriented. My examples might include the entire Chandan, Pani, Bijli, Parvat, everything in the world. But that is just to validate what I am saying. Okay, so that you are able to imbibe all these things, all these theory. That's why I keep giving examples from our day-to-day life. But our approach will always be strictly as per the UPSC syllabus. Okay, so see, you have again answered one question here. Yes, I can share this PPT. No issues at all. If you want, I can share the PPT. If you want, I can convert this PPT into PDF. I have learned everything in this lockdown. I was never a PPT person. I used to go into my class with just a marker, no books, nothing. And now I have learned everything in lockdown. Okay, so of course I can share this with you. No issues at all. Whatever is appearing here belongs to you. Okay, so I'm proceeding to the next slide. No issues to anyone. Psychology, behaviorism in perspective of polity, sir. Venkat, this is a slightly loaded question. We need to know much more in order to answer it. You will answer it yourself. Again, polity is not the appropriate word that you have used here. You will learn this thing on your own when we'll progress. Summarizing everything, behaviorism, 4 to 5 points, okay? That is all you have to remember. Okay, that is all you have to remember. Benefits. What are the benefits? This approach makes political science more scientific and brings it closer to day-to-day life of the individual. So political theory is not an elitist theory belonging to someone like Socrates or Plato or Aristotle or Descartes or Hegel. It is amongst us. It is us whose behavior is deciding the very essence of political theory. Has first explained human event to the field of political science and thus makes the study more relevant to the society. Don't you think that it has to be relevant to society? What is the use of all this theory if it's not relatable? Like Karl Marx said, state shall wither away. I am witnessing Marxism is withering away. Right or wrong? Everywhere in the world, Marxist or communist governments are in decline, right? So how can we say that state has withered away? No, it's not individualism, Namo, because behavioralism, as I told you, individuals' behavior are studied together. Individuals, S, plural. So it's not individualism. More than one individual is considered. And then their behavior is analyzed. And then, this is what I explained. Different individuals are examined, their behavioral pattern is examined, and then they arrive at a conclusion when there is a uniformity among different individuals based on their political behavior. Okay. So as I told you, that theory you have written, and if it's not corresponding to what is happening in society, that theory itself is irrelevant. Correct. We are seeing everywhere in the world that state is becoming more inevitable and stronger. And those theorists who have propounded the decline and the demise of state, their theory has become more irrelevant. Okay. So this makes human behavior also a subject of political theory. And it's very individual, so individual at the same time society oriented. This approach helps in predicting future political events. Can you give me an example, anyone? Else I'll give you. See, learning these things will make you, more observant. And by observant, I do not mean who is wearing what and who is listening and watching what. The political realm around us in this country, in this world, you will tend to have an interest in these things. So, give me an example how it helps in predicting future political events. Hong Kong is fighting for democracy. Can you tell me the reason? Why? There's an there's a law involved. Can you name the law? If you can name it, when I come to Hyderabad, I'll give you a chocolate. Not just one person, not all. National security law. Very good, very good. No. Only the first person will qualify. Hemant. Okay, I owe you a chocolate, but for that I have to be there. So, 1997, right? Hong Kong was a British protectorate, and 1997 it was handed over to China. China said we respect Hong Kong. Imagine British country, British governed by Britain and then by China. Extreme liberal to highly regulatory, state-oriented communist regime. So China said, no, we realize you, but this is the law under which we have taken you as a protectorate, as a British protectorate. So we'll abide by it. Now they have done nothing to that order. 2003, the first protest happened. Today you see it's a big issue for Xi Jinping. Everyone knew because Hong Kong people in Hong Kong have been not used to the Chinese atrocities like people in Tibet. Tibetis, ever heard that Tibetis have revolted? All they do is to immolate themselves. Why not burn Xi Jinping? Why are you immolating yourself? Right? Because Tibetans have always, right from 1949, they have been brutalized, they have been suppressed. Hong Kong people were not. So you know that a certain political promise has been made, a law has been passed, the law has not been obeyed into letter and spirit, so Hong Kong will revolt. So we can predict the future, right? Pakistan, failed state. We call it in political science a rogue state. ROUGE, rogue state. Formed on the basis of religion, still fighting for religion. And there is no Hindutva right wing in Pakistan. They are fighting amongst themselves, right? Because the creation was at fault. Muhammad Ali Jinnah realized this, right? So you see, it can help in predicting the political events. What will happen? Government gives subsidy. Ye yojana, this yojana, that yojana, just before the election is about to be announced. And then you see, oh, they have helped so many poor. So they might win this election. Now this model has also failed. You do it just before elections, you cannot win. You do it for entire 5 years, you will win, right? So behavior of individual corresponding to a certain event, a policy event, can help us in predicting for future political event. So very correct thing we are seeing here. Next point, behavioral approach has been supported by different political things, that is scientific approach and predictable nature of political events. So what are these social psephologists doing? They also predict this. When did I say, Hemant, that it's 100% right? There is nothing 100% right in political science. Of course. Acha, do you know this term ceteris paribus? Interdisciplinary, so I can teach economics also. Ceteris paribus. Have you heard this term? Ceteris paribus is like other things remaining constant. Okay. So it was used during Great Depression, and when the macroeconomics John Maynard Keynes came, we have to study it somewhere in political science also. That's why I'm referring to it. That what they say, other things remaining constant, if there is a shortage of a particular good, its price would increase. Make sense? Yes or no? If there is a shortage of particular good which is of certain utility, then the price would increase. Ceteris paribus. These two terms they write at the end. Other things remaining constant, then we will have a direct correlation between the quantity supplied and the price. There can be times when there is a shortage and the price is not going up, it's falling. Like during lockdown, uh, if there was a shortage of certain luxury good, who cared? Everyone was caring about mask and sanitizer and so on and so forth. So other things remaining constant. This is what I respond to you. Law of demand and supply. Good. That is what I explained, Sumana. Right? So, of course, geopolitics will come into play. So many other things will come into play, but we cannot undermine or we cannot underrate the human behavior. Understood, all of you? Criticism. We will criticize everything, don't worry. Don't get emotional about a particular theory or a particular political thinker, okay? Because I'll criticize everyone. This has been disparaged for its dependence on practices and methods, ignoring the subject matter. They are saying that you become so much process oriented that you forget the content. It happens at times, right? It happens at times. You become so much process oriented that you forget what the content actually was. So subject matter takes a backseat. Tools, methods, everything become more important. Second point, because there is a certain element of scientific theory coming here, right? Second point, supporters they were wrong when they said that human beings behave in similar way in similar circumstances. Again, a big question mark. History does not teach this to us. There are very aberrations to this theory, exceptions to this theory. Can you tell me one exception of second point? Human beings behave in similar ways in similar circumstances being proved wrong. Can you tell me? So what was partition of India and Pakistan? इसमें क्या हुआ? Okay, partitioned under same circumstances, right? Okay, fair enough. Okay. Again, you compare India with Middle East. Try to compare India with Middle East. There is just one democracy, functioning democracy in Middle East. Can you tell me the name? Israel, right? Why so? Because unlike their Arab countries, they did not follow Islamic theological Sharia law. So again, framed at the same time, similar circumstances, but then they heralded different paths. Correct? 47 India and Pakistan, 48 Israel. And see the stark difference between at least two countries, Israel and Pakistan. Same impact of colonialism. They were also into a colony. North and South Korea, very good. Very good. Look at that Kim Jong Choo and look at the South Korean president and look at South Korea, right? So there is a question mark here that how can you say that different people will behave differently, exactly similar way under similar circumstances? It cannot happen always. Okay. Third thing, this approach focus on human behavior, but it is difficult task to study and get to a different result. Again, human behavior is very, very complex. What makes you happy today might make you sad tomorrow. Right? All of you are into college or yes, Anusha, that's what I said right now. Just read this point. The approach focuses on human behavior. It is difficult task to study human behavior. All of you, I assume, are graduates or doing your graduation. Remember the time we were into high school appearing for your 10th board exams? Your priorities were different, right? What used to make you happy was different. The factors that used to make you happy at that time than these times, maybe after 10 to 15 years, they will again change. So, how do you say with absolute certainty that X, Y, and Z factor will make a human being happy till eternity? It cannot happen. Correct? It's a very complex behavior. Actually, different nations handling COVID is also an exception, but then different nations are not similarly placed. Some nations already had a very advanced healthcare system, Having said that, no nation's healthcare system can manage pandemic. Nations do not create healthcare system with this view that corona-like crisis will come and we'll handle it. Everyone is like, we do not have sufficient hospitals. I mean, what about those countries who have sufficient hospital? What happened in Italy? What happened in Germany, in Britain, and US? Can you make more hospitals than them? No healthcare system can take care of a pandemic. Let us understand this fact. The response has to be different. Okay, whether you go into a panic mode or whether you say it, okay, bring it on, we'll face it. Okay, so here it would come into play, the different nations handling corona crisis. So again, human behavior. The point is, you cannot. It's a difficult task to study human behavior because people are impulsive, right? And you cannot arrive at definite result. One thing might appear exactly same thing might appear good to you at some point of time, same day, and bad depending on your mood. If you're in a good mood, you will say okay, good, and if you're in a bad mood, you will say oh, just get lost, right? So see how complex human behavior is. Next thing, most of the political phenomena are indeterminate. Therefore, it is always difficult to use scientific methods to study politics. Again, the same thing that you are applying something which tells you 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, right? And mathematics, science, okay? And then you are trying to apply the same principle into something which is not 100% accurate, where there is no 100% accurate pattern. Category mistake we are making. We are applying exact methods in not so exact disciplines. Correct? The scholar being a human being is not always value neutral as believed by behavior is very good point. Okay. All of us are biased. Ain't we? Are we not? Tell me. All of us are biased. Who thinks he or she is neutral? There is nothing called neutrality. No thinking man can be neutral, right? So all of us are biased. So while framing those behavioral theories, our biases will come into play. So how can it be an exact theory? There always will be some lacuna, right? Okay. So these are the criticisms. I hope you understood all of them. Can I move? Anyone who has a question who did not understand? Okay, then next see the next decision making approach. This political approach discovers the features of decision makers as well as the type of influence the individual have on decision makers. Richard Snyder and Charles Lidbaum, you can remember these two names. Now come to this point. This is the most important and something that we have to understand, which is taken by few actors. Actors here means those who have a role to play. Individuals, you can say, influence a large society, and such a decision is generally shaped by a specific situation. Therefore, it takes into account psychological and social aspect of decision makers also. Let us again read this, especially the third point. Political decision taken by a few actors influences a large society. Now, give me an example. Give me an example of this first and first part of the second line. Demonetization. How? Correct, but how? Of course, one few chosen individuals. In fact, the cabinet was also unaware of it. Only 4 to 5 people were aware of it, right? It affected entire India. In fact, in every country is also all of them into money laundering and everything. Very good. Very good. All your examples are superb. All of you. Now let me read the entire line again. Political decision which is taken by a few actors influences a large society, and such a decision is generally shaped by a specific situation. Now you read till full stop and then give me an example. Can I give a hint? I was expecting this Article 370. Good. My hint is something which happened on 5th of August this year. JNK was last year. Ram Mandir. Do not undermine this thing. As student of political science in Indian government and politics, we shall discuss at great lengths about this because this is given in your syllabus. You have to study the different profiling of all the political parties. BJP had three core promises when the party was formed: removal of Article 370, implementation of UCC, building of Ram Temple at Ayodhya. Okay, And from 1984, when they had 2 seats, in 2019 they have 303 seats. This is a case study in posterity, not only for us as political science students, even for generations to come, that how a party changes the entire political landscape of a very heterogeneous and diverse and plural country like India. Okay, so see how it evolved 35 years. Now read this line again. A political decision which is taken by a few actors influences a larger society, and such a decision is generally shaped by specific situation. Did you understand? Decision making approach, psychological and social aspect. Why did Advani ji took his Rath Yatra? He knew the impact that it will create from Somnath to Ayodhya, from Gujarat to UP, and he took this route like this. Okay, he went not directly. So wherever the Rath went, it was greeted by, roars of Jai Sri Ram. That was a galvanization of Hindu vote, a polarization, right? So psychological and social aspect. So such decisions are taken, which influences the political behavior. Any questions here? I hope this is clear to all of you. Let we can move to the next slide. Normative theory. Related to concepts just such as justice, equality, and rights, we have to study each of this is a keyword in your syllabus: justice, equality, and rights. But let us see this theory briefly because we have to understand normative theory also. Yeah, of course, good and bad both will be included. We have discussed about influence. Good and bad is a relative term. In political science, good and bad is a relative term. In ethics, they can be fixed. In political science, good and bad will be a relative term. Okay, do not go into value evaluation for now. There will be a time for this too. Normative political theory related to concepts such as justice, equality, and rights. Historical political theory involves political philosophers from the past to the present and may focus on how particular philosophers engaged political problems that continue to be relevant today. What should be the nature of the state? How the ideal king should behave? How much tax should be raised? So on and so forth. People from the time of Socrates to current times have been pondering over, contemplating over these questions. While the focus has traditionally been on Western tradition, that is beginning to change in this field. Okay, what Mr. O.P. Goba writes, famous author of political theory, most of you must have heard this name. Some of you also pinged me on Telegram with, do we need to read O.P. Goba? You don't have to because I'll keep quoting if and where needed. What he says, empirical approach seeks to discover and describe facts, whereas normative seeks to determine the prescribed value. Again, we see focus is being shifted again back to values through normative approach. Okay, historical. Remember the good old times, value oriented. Same thing normative theory does because it deals with questions like justice, equality, and rights. Now, when justice, equality, and rights are coming into play, you cannot afford to ignore values. Okay, justice, equality, and rights, whenever they operate, somewhere value will be involved. Okay, so the core theme is value oriented. Whether this system will be just, whether this system will provide equality and protect the rights of the individual, that is what normative theory does. Okay, any other thing? Any questions till now here? I have to discuss few more things with you, which I have not put on the slides. First, let me know whether you have understood everything that I have put on slides today. Yes, normative theories will be non-scientific, more non-scientific. They cannot be anything which is completely non-scientific. Prescribing values means saying good and bad, ascribing, defining things through saying that they are. Yeah, of course, I'm coming to it. Okay, I'll do this again. See, normative theory focuses on which political theory would usher in justice, equality, and rights. That is why we are saying that because it talks about justice, equality, and right, it will again be value based. So again, reason and logic and facts will take a backseat. Okay, certain so and so political system, but democracy will bring more justice, equality, and rights, whether facts point otherwise. Facts can say a benevolent king will bring more justice, equality, and rights than a functioning democracy, where democracy can be hijacked by few elites. But normative theory would again endorse democracy because, according to the political theory point of view, democracy, by its very definition, will bring these values. Okay, and that is what Mr. Goba says, that empirical approach seeks to discover and describe facts. Yeah, sense organ perceptions, experience. One experience, you can always experience it and then point out to the fact. Whatever you experience, you state it, it becomes a fact. Right? I step out, I feel cold, I say, oh, the temperature has dipped. It's a fact based on my empirical experience. Normative approach seeks to determine and prescribe values. It will not go into fact. It will prescribe value. If it has rained, has it brought justice, equality, and rights? Now you might ask, how? Wow, why not? There is a village, agriculture-based village. Okay, agriculture is the prime moving factor. It has rained, good monsoons have come, farmers will earn. Farmers will get their sufficient bread and butter. So this is what normative theory does. I just gave a very vague example, not true all the time. Okay, you understood the essence what normative value tries to tell us. Now, one thing, your next class is about liberal theory of state, I guess. Right? Please confirm this to me if your next class is about liberal theory. So, just few things I would like to remind you today, which will come very handy when we'll discuss it tomorrow. What is liberal theory? For that matter, what is liberalism? Open-minded, broad-minded, no restriction on a person. Okay. See, all of you are defining it in bits and pieces. No, Harsha, you are wrong. Harsha is wrong. The rest of you have defined it in bits and pieces. I'll tell you why. Liberal theory of state, when we are trying to understand, first of all, what is liberal? Who is a liberal? And do not, again, what is conservative, Sharat? Yeah, status quo is correct. See, liberal is one who can accept diverse views. Okay. There is a beautiful quotation by Voltaire. I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death of your right to say it. Nothing can sum up liberalism better. I repeat, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death of your right to say it. All of you understood it? And this is a beautiful fit all definition of liberalism. Even I don't agree with you, but I'll listen to you. I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death of your right to say it. We have to study this. Don't note it down, please. We have to study it. No, no, not fundamental rights, Aditya. Let's not go there. I'm saying something, you are saying something. I don't like what you are saying, but I'll say that, okay, even if I don't like, you must say it. Let there be a debate and discussion. Maybe something meaningfully will emerge out of our discussion. This is what a liberal would say. Okay, my point is X, your point is Y. Let there be a deliberation, a contemplation between X and Y. Z will emerge, which will be better. This is what a liberal would say. Okay, so when I did not define it, I just explained it. I'll tell you that I will agree to the other's view even if I do not agree with. I will listen to the other's view even if I do not agree with it. I'll give you an example. Okay, I don't like I don't like Karl Marx. It's not that I don't like him as a person. I don't like his Marxist theory. But I would never say that don't sell those books who perpetuate Marxism. Why not? I don't like Hitler, but I have read his autobiography, Mein Kampf. Okay. I don't like something, but I will not say that that thing should not exist. I don't like Hitler, but I will have read his autobiography. This for me is liberalism. Okay. Most of us, there is hardly anyone who would like Hitler, but I would still say read his book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle, which he wrote in jail. How Nazis are built, you will understand that. So I like it or not, irrespective of my preference, he or she has a right to exist under the law. Why under the law? If he does something which is for which he or she should be completely liquidated, law will take a call. Correct? Hello. Shreyas has also read it. So I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death of your writing. This is liberal theory. So why I am telling this here? Because next class we are going to study liberal theory of state. So of course, in state, when a political theory is to be perpetuated about state, formulated about state, and when we talk about liberals, then there cannot be one definition. Just remember this point, because liberals tend to accommodate diverse views, right? Liberals tend to accommodate diverse views whether they like it or not. Understood? So, liberal theory of state will not be one size fit all theory, and that we shall see tomorrow. Now, before I end it today, I have to tell you something that the notification has come. Are you all aware of it? The D Day has been announced. Why Indian liberals hate Hinduism? What was the name who asked this? Namo. Namo, I'll definitely answer your question, but we have to study this under some other heading. Yes, 27th of June is the date. We will study this for sure. Why Indian liberals hate Hinduism and whether they actually hate it or not, we'll examine it. We'll put across some facts and it will be an open house. Now, having said this, no one is saying you don't have to justify it, Subhana. The thing is, 27th of June will be the prelims. UPSC has said it crystal clear. Some people filed a PIL in Supreme Court, and I was reading the judgment today itself. It is such a wonderful judgment that they said our works have to be carried on. We have to carry on with our work in these times. We cannot always sit at home. Actually, true. Take precautions. Do your work. Correct. So, exam is going to happen on time. Now, I've been in Delhi for the last 15 years. I'm teaching for the last almost a decade now. I'm associated with some institutes, and you know, at this Super 90, what I feel very good about is that this crisis has not affected your study schedule. I remember when I started with the NCRT series, and we covered NCRTs. Then other teachers came, they did their part. Bhushan ji came, Neeraj ji came, and now I'm starting with political science. So I see a very gradual progression happening with you all, and definitely our target is to complete the syllabus by February, latest by March. Why I said March? Because then the economic survey and budget would also come. Unlike last year, it will not be an interim or a vote on account; it will be a full-fledged budget. So, giving a week or two to that, maybe February or second week of March, we'll completely wrap up the syllabus. I so wish that people are allowed to move so that I can come there and take classes. And if I come there, I would teach you for 5 hours, okay, for at least a week or so. So please, you also put your efforts, revise these things, and refer to the materials that are provided to you. Today also, a PDF will be given to you. It's please go through that. Even if you don't understand it, you can always ask me. So rest assured, the preparation is being carried away at Super 90 in a very good way. I don't see it happening at much places in Delhi-based institutes. Everyone here is in a state of panic. The students are like, oh my God, the state has been announced. Now what should we do? The institutes are closed. Online classes are not happening, or if they are happening, it's not regular. Teachers are being so many issues that should not actually even think about these things. So please consider yourself uh, in good hands and remember to revise. If you can revise this, then only this exam is for you. If you understand and you don't revise, you will 100% forget it on your exam day. Suppose you read something in newspaper today and you find it to be very important, you understood it. Will you remember it on 27th of June? And how many such important things will happen between today and 27th of June? So what do you think you are? Shakuntala Devi? And you will remember everything. So you need to revise. That's what I'm telling you, that revision is as important as studying. In fact, more. So please revise things. Of course, we will have our question answer sessions also. And but Before that, I want to give some content to you. So please do this, and you will do very good in your exam if you stick to the schedule and what the teachers are asking you to do. As and when things get better, we shall meet for sure. So, any other question for today regarding all the different theories? Tomorrow we are starting with the liberal theory of state. I've already given you an introduction. We have seen what is liberalism. Of course, there are certain unanswered questions like Namo asked. We'll see these things. Anything for today that you want to ask? Nothing, it seems. Okay, then see you all tomorrow. Take good care. Please study hard.